formulating a ball-shaped world to believe in requires unequivocally you measure Earth's surface level. You utilise sea level. You measure your altitude with respect to sea level and its flat Earth prerequisite measurements in an average. You ignore that eye level is parallel with surface level. You can do that. I grant you my permission. But it doesn't change that every single thing I've just detailed is Earth being measured flat, in all circumstances, by everyone, including ball believers, without any exceptions.
And you're coming along and saying, well, it's not that, it's measured flat. They're saying that we are poisoning society and we're dumbing it down.
Yeah, of course. Propagandists will do that. I mean, it's one of those things that at a base level, most of the general public, at some level, know that the news lies to them. Yeah? But when it comes to something that they've been indoctrinated with from a very early age, like heliocentric sphericity to Earth's surface that's measured flat, when the news tells them about that, well, that's true. I mean, they wouldn't propagandise me with that. That's most people's attitude. That's called cognitive dissonance. Yes, I know the man on the stand lied about everything, but there's something that he said that affirmed my religious belief in being on a ball. Therefore, I'm pretty sure I'm just going to accept that particular bit. You know, that's okay to accept. Like what, from the proven liars that you know lie to you. Yeah? Okay. Good for you. Me, I don't accept anything that somebody who's lost all credibility says anymore, like the news, that are used directly to propagandise you. They even tell you, I don't know what it is about this mystical way of dealing out mistruth and letting you know that they have intentionally misled you. Like they'll teach you in school what propaganda is, so that you're acutely aware that they are lying to you. It's just slightly misappropriated language. Not lies, propaganda, right? Misinformation. Why not just call it what it is? They're just lying to you. But you don't see it that way because it's come through the lips of a newsreader who's reading off a teleprompter and doesn't really know what they're saying. Right? They're just coming from Reuters to begin with anyway, and they do their research. I'm sure most of it's true. 90%. But with the 10% that ultimately gives them this rap of being dishonest, kicks in with something that they're definitely attuned to, that's heliocentrism, then they couldn't possibly lie. Yeah, they could. They could completely lie about travelling out through a second law of thermodynamics violating space, that the gas that expands in all directions, like when you fart and it spreads out in your room, that's what all the gas would do if there was a sky vacuum. It would all piss off and never return. What's that? The rockets can go? Really? Why? Oh, they need to escape the force of gravity? Yeah, like they teach the 12-year-old boys in high school about the force. It's not a force. There is no gravitational attraction. There's a bent pseudo-geometry that was invented by a man named Einstein currently. And even then, that's 111 years superseding the force that you think that they need to have an escape velocity for? Really? So the gas is moving at high velocity. They can't traverse into the sky vacuum, but your rockets can, to get you little snapshots of the ball Earth from a sky vacuum. Really? What about all the gas that sits around the edge of that blue marble in a black area that's 10 to the minus 17 torr? No problem. Really? Now I'm thinking that it's just a lie for overgrown 12-year-olds. But what's that? The news wouldn't lie about it. NASA spend millions. These people own money. You think that some consequence is how much they need to spend on lying to you. They're not lying to you. They're lying to everybody. What's this? A Cartesian system with a glorified protractor wrapped around an equatorial plane that we must measure Earth flat for the angles to all stars? Yeah, that's correct. Earth's measured flat. Your ball's based on it. Now, at the moment, I'm having to write extra little bits into my book where I disclaim how a redundant argument that says that if you want to believe in a globe, that's the redundant bit, you must first measure Earth flat. Now, the fact that we do measure Earth flat supersedes me telling you that in the rock of acceptance when it comes to flat Earth measurements, you can then use them to create a globe with. No, that's heliocentrism. Ipso facto based on flat Earth foundations and measurements of Earth's surface as a level plane. Sea level would be the most obvious example. It's measured. It's an average of flat Earth measurements. that we use to describe the differentials in the surface topology. There's no curve. We've measured it. It's flat. So you don't need to worry your precious little head about it when you tell me how globe-shaped it is. I don't care anymore. It's inconsequential. The normies can be told how they don't understand. Me, I understand how your stupid faith requires Earth be measured flat, making every argument we ever had completely and utterly void, redundant, useless, surplus to requirements. It was measured flat anyway. The entire religion that they're telling me is ball-shaped depends on it being measured flat, formerly known as the rock and hard place argument. Either sink to your knees in acceptance of how flat Earth must be measured to derive radial values from surface-level angle measurements to mountains, or sticks and shadows giving you angles off a flat plane to the sun. Maybe you'd like to deny the elevation angles used to form a latitude system. Maybe you'd like to deny the longitude system and its utilisation of angle measurements to the sun. Deny it all! Couldn't give a crap! That's how it's done. Earth's measured flat.
What do you mean, redundant? You're going to make a lot of enemies like that.
If I accept that I can measure sticks and shadows in the ground off a flat Earth to create a radial value flat, to derive sphericity from said radial value, so then if I ignore everything I've just said, we can automatically assume, that's beg the question, of Earth having the sphericity the flat Earth measurements afforded it. That's a violation of the base measurement in the first instance, by the way. I'd have to ignore that too. Then we can argue about how flat Earth wouldn't work based on the transformation of the flat Earth measurements into sphericity. We could do that, but that would be, to quote me 30 seconds ago, redundant. You've got half a dozen different flat Earth prerequisites that the foundations of globe belief are built on. Now, I'm not going to ignore them. And if you, my so-called previous opponents, want to say, nah, it's okay to measure Earth flat to build a ball, it's easier that way. End quote, Dave McKeegan. Or, yeah, of course we measure Earth flat. It doesn't mean it is, Simon Dan. You can do that. It's just you're engaged in quite clear and obvious verbalised cognitive dissonance. Now, again, if you're watching that and you go, yeah, that makes total sense, it's okay to, quote, measure Earth flat, because it isn't. It's a really big ball. You can believe that that shit makes sense. You can. You can do that. It's delusional, it's idiotic, and I'm not going to engage in such stupidity. To build a ball to tell me how flat Earth won't work when your foundations are flat. That seems silly. Any arguments about how ball-shaped the world could be, and then showing how ball-shaped it isn't, just revolve, no pun intended, around ball-shaped thinking. And that ball-shaped thinking isn't required when you know that formulating a ball-shaped world to believe in requires unequivocally you measure Earth's surface level. You utilise sea level. You measure your altitude with respect to sea level and its flat Earth prerequisite measurements in an average. You ignore that eye level is parallel with surface level. You can do that. I grant you my permission. But it doesn't change that every single thing I've just detailed is Earth being measured flat, in all circumstances, by everyone, including ball believers, without any exceptions. Everyone measures Earth flat, even for dumb ball faith.
So when you're talking measured flat, you're pretty much knocking everything out of the box, and it all becomes redundant because, to start with, you're measuring Earth flat.
Yes.
Makes it pretty simple, doesn't it?
Yeah, it makes it simple beyond the comprehension of those who would ignore the presupposition, those who would beg the question and ignore all flat Earth prerequisites. That's okay. I mean, I can take, in my new book that's about to come out in the next week or so, the person's cognition through the path of their ball faith with all flat measurements being disclaimed along the way. That makes it quite difficult to write because I'm explaining how a former faith that I had in the ball can be opposed when labelled as a flat earther. That's anti-globism. And then the anti-globism that I engage in can be decried by those who would relinquish the fundamental principles of ball faith to tell me, a labelled flat earther, that I'm wrong. That's anti-flat earthism. I could do all of those things, but why would I? I don't care if people want to deny how flat Earth must be measured. And if you want to say, yeah, it's okay for me and my faith in a ball to measure Earth flat for convenience, because it's really big. You can do that too. It'll get me rolling my eyes and laughing at you if it ever comes up in discussion. It's like, I'm not even going to enter into the notion that I should be suggesting that you offer me measurements for your faith when I know where your faith comes from. Flat Earth measurements. Why would I suggest an inconsequential YouTuber or two have the answers when it comes to the derivation of the actual surface level measurements of Earth that produce their faith? I don't care. You're YouTubers. You don't have a say in what Earth gets measured as. The heliocentric priests of 500 years ago did, and they chose to use flat Earth measurements to base the belief that you now hold on. Now I know that. Doesn't make me a frickin' historian, it just means I can do a bit of primary source research, in this case the mathematics of Earth's sphericity, and come to the simple fact and conclusion that Earth's got to be measured flat for that. Now, you don't have to like that. You can apologise for how flat it is necessary to be measuring Earth for your ball faith to exist, and then deny it for its flatness. Just because we measure Earth flat to create a ball doesn't mean that Earth is flat. It just means that we must measure it as a flat surface to create the ball, to say that the ball we created from the flat measurements is the reality of ball-shaped Earth that violates the measurements we took to create it. That's reasonable, if you like. It's not. It's stupid. But I've done this for long enough to be able to break down the cognition of those who think by default that they're on a ball when they haven't done any primary source research for where their ball came from. I have. It was from flat Earth measurements. I'll just spoiler. Yeah, you don't need to read to the end. It was all based on flat Earth measurements the whole time. And still is. We still use Cartesian grids for GPS global. Nah, it's flat. It's using coordinates. You don't know what coordinates are? Maybe you'd like to show me a few and ask me how they work on a flat Earth. Yeah? Like other dumbass bull believers who take flat Earth measurements and ask us how they'd work on a flat Earth. Yeah? People who fail to do primary source research. That's all this is. Go and have a look where your ball came from. You'll quickly find Earth's measured flat for it. Or just buy a compass. Have a look at what a compass is and then point south.
Well, according to the map guy, I had a dialogue with one deck. That's not the way a compass works.
If you want to delude yourself that the way a compass, a tool that gives you two-dimensional directionality when levelled, isn't, and maybe appeal to the magnetic field lines being somewhat claim to be proof of Earth's sphericity. No, the claim that you would use to suggest that the field line somehow infers sphericity means you have some sphericity to infer by measurement. No, those are all flat. Did I not just cover this? We didn't derive radial values from measuring spheres. We derived them by measuring angles off a flat plane. Those are just facts. Like the cardinal directionality that you'll get when you use a system that's deriving its two-dimensional directionality from magnetic field lines. You still have to level a compass. Directions are just flat, whether you like it or not.
Nathan, compasses are just locally flat. If you had a really, really big one, it would curve.
Yeah, I agree. Next man can come along and go, yeah, it's just easier to use this two-dimensional directionality system because locally, two-dimensional, that's flat, directionality, exactly as a compass functions, is okay on something that isn't flat. Okay. I'm Nathan Oakley. It's my pleasure. It's on me. You can have it. What's that? Flat measurements from a flat level tool in a flat two-dimensional system that derives directionality isn't flat. Okay. You're all idiots. You're poisoning humanity. Yeah? When you breed that stupidity into another generation, you're just making the world dumber.